Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Firstly, for this one, I've just gotten back from a trip to the Ubisoft studios in Barcelona, and I just want to give a massive thank you to Ubisoft for taking me, and there was a few other guys there. There was Childish, Legend, and myself representing the English-speaking content creators, and there was also a bunch of the French community there as well, and it was just an absolutely amazing time, and I'm just really grateful for the experience that I was able to have over there. And it was great to get a good insight into the sort of development process and all that sort of thing that happens in the studio when they're actually creating the game. So yeah, massive thank you to Ubisoft and all the other content creators that were there for making it such a great trip. So while we were over there, they released the new patch, which we did a stream while we were over there. I know Childish, we did it all on Childish's Twitch account, so it'll be over there. He's also going to be making YouTube videos out of it, and if it's already out when I release this video, I'll leave a link in the description. If not, I'll add it once he does release the video. But we did a stream and we covered all sorts of things. We did a Q&A with the developers. We also had, we went through all the monster balancing changes and all that sort of thing. But the big thing I want to look at in this video is how they've made the dungeon boss hit harder and the waves less health and defense. So obviously with this change, it would have impacted a lot of people, and I know it may sound like it doesn't mean much coming from me saying, giving advice on, how to try and clear it, but just because I'm past the stage where the change affected me. I know Childish, when we were over there, his team was clearing it, and then he started failing, so he's actually going through this process at the moment. But I thought the least I could do was try and reglyph my 2-star army team and try and find that sort of range of stats that you want to aim for to have a fairly reliable Wrath 10 team. So that's what I've done. I've reglyphed all these guys. I'll show you their glyphs in a minute. Taking into account a few other things. So I'm hoping that this video will just sort of give you guys the hope that it's not all doom and gloom. I know for me, on when I did my 2-star army, the separate account that I gave away, I was able to do it with only one 5-star unit, and a lot of my glyphs, I don't think I had one glyph at 16. So I'm hoping for most people, the only thing that's really going to change for their team is that they might have to upgrade some glyphs a bit more, maybe 5-star another unit or something like that. I'm hoping it's not going to put you at a handbrake for a long period of time, but like the dev said when we were over there, that they just felt that people were clearing endgame content too quickly and too easily. Just sort of people had been playing for, maybe 3 weeks. Some people had been doing it in maybe less. I know on the alt account that I gave away previously, I was farming Wrath 10 within, I think, 4 weeks of playing it, and that was using only 2 stars and only one 5-star, like I said. So that was fairly quick, and so the idea was to sort of give a bit more value to that endgame content, make it a bit harder to get to, but then still keep the reward once you finally get there. So I'm just going to end this run. You can see it's going fairly reliably. I feel like I've got the team to a point where it actually functions fairly well. Obviously, it's my same 2-star army, my original team. You'll see that the Earth Basilisk isn't in here. That's because I hadn't built him on my main account. But also, I feel like maybe the Wind Assassin, it might be a little bit better for it now, just because of the elemental advantage against the boss. And that Basilisk is very squishy now. And also the way that AI works now, it's not 100% that the Basilisk is going to be attacking that Knoll with the stun. So he's not as reliable as he once was. Still fantastic, but I just feel for this right at the moment, the Assassin just does that. Just basically the elemental advantage is what really gives her the advantage over the Basilisk at this stage. So we'll let this run clear. As you can see, it's doing it fairly well. I didn't get too low at any stage here, but another thing just to keep in mind when you're doing your runs is, even if you reach the stats I have, because I know people are going to say, I've got the stats, I failed, RNG is still a thing. I'm going to leave some runs running in the corner while I go through this. But yeah, just keep in mind, RNG is a thing. I think maybe the 3rd run I recorded for this video, I wipe on the boss just because, the Nymph didn't use the heal. RNG, things line up bad, and yeah, you will still get fails, but this is just sort of the stats on my monsters that are getting me through fairly reliably. I started off with lower stats, and I was failing a bit more than I was wanting to, so I've gradually crept the stats up until I found a point that I was happy with. So this is my water nymph. I originally had her on double appeasement, but then I thought most people aren't going to have double appeasement, so I wanted to take her off of that so that the heal wasn't getting buffed too much, just for fairness sake. And this is where she's ended up. Now, I know I have got full purples because I pretty much only keep purple glyphs now, but as you'll see, they aren't powered up that much, just to sort of give that range to people. So she's on speed. This one's only a level 1 vitality, like I said, just to break that second appeasement set so that it wasn't a bit too unfair. So that's that. Double defense. Not amazing substats on some of these glyphs either. Some do have really good substats, but some not so much. So, and then HP and HP, and that's only a 31% increase on that. So I think it's, what is it? I think the yellow is 49 at 16. So these stats, I feel like they'll be very obtainable with yellow glyphs. But yeah, that's her stats. Obviously, she is 5-starred. She's one that I found even originally when I started playing through the game, I needed to have 5-starred. So yeah, it depends on your healer, but obviously I'm using the Water Nymph because she was my first healer, the 2-star. She is max skilled, which does help a lot too. So that might be another thing you have to consider is skill ups on your monsters. Maybe max skilling is more necessary now, but I've also tried to keep the speeds fairly low. So normally now when I glyph a monster, I want 150, normally much more speed. So I've tried to keep their speeds low just to represent more where people's glyphs will be at early game. So yeah, this is her. Especially with the non-wind units, you want to get a bit tankier. I think I'd even like to have her have a little bit more defense up over that 1,000 mark. But where she is now, she has been working pretty well. The advantage to her is that when she does use the heal, she gets it instantly because she's using it. And that's where she gets away with a little less stats, just because she doesn't have to wait another turn before she gets that heal. When she casts that heal, she gets it instantly. That's a benefit to the healer with the regenerate. But you also got to consider now fire units may not be as great because the extra damage that the boss gives, plus they're taking that extra 30% damage, it does start to hurt. And then on the same scale, which is why I said I'm using the wind assassin, is that your wind units are taking less damage from the boss, so they don't need to be glyphed quite as well as the others. My next unit was the water bird. As you can see, I've got 2 glyphs just completely off of the water bird. So I'll take you to what I've got. I've got the speed, HP percent, defense percent, defense percent. Now, the bird is 5-star as well, but I don't see it as an issue having to 5-star the bird. The bird's very handy in a lot of content, so it's well worth a 5-star eventually anyway. So, you know, it just might be one of those ones you have to consider. If it's dying a lot, you might have to do that. But mine also does have the inflicts great damage, doesn't have the self-heal, so that's another thing. If you have the self-heal, you know, your bird might be a little bit better at lower stats. The handy thing is it does have a very high base defense, so it's easy to get those higher defense levels. So previously when I used to be looking at like about the 10,000 HP, 1,000 defense, now you want to be creeping a bit above those. Like you'll see, I'm not massively above it, but it's just that when I tried it originally, I had everything at about the 10,000, 1,000, and it just wasn't working. So, and once again, fairly low speed, only plus 46 speed, which you can pretty much get from having two level 16 yellow speed glyphs. You might need a haste set in there to get that, or some subs, but you know, it's very, very attainable. What I consider would be obtainable. Another massive thing to consider in this team is my bird is still not max skilled. So if you max out this 3rd and 2nd skill, you're going to be getting that the shield, the speed slow, the attack break, all that mitigation is going to be coming around a lot quicker. So that might be another thing that you can look at just to increase your reliability of your team. Just max skilling that water bird, it does make a lot of difference. And then we'll move on to the next unit. Next unit is the Windgoon. Once again, mine is 5-star. This guy definitely does not need 5-star. Pretty much, I put him here. He's on a haste precision set just because I wanted the accuracy. I wanted a bit of speed. He's probably faster than most people would get, but with him, the main thing you do want is the speed because you want that buff up a lot of the time. And this is something to consider. I know with Childish's team, when I was talking about how he started failing. He had the Winter Druid in there as his healer and defense buffer, but because of the long cooldown, the defense buff wasn't coming around enough. So I suggested to him maybe put the Golem in there just for that more reliable defense buff. So that's another thing you might have to consider is now that the boss is dealing more damage, you do need more reliable mitigation, and something like the Wind Golem with his 2-turn cooldown, 2-turn buff, it is very high uptime. So like I said, his Druid, just the defense buff wasn't up enough to mitigate enough damage, so he's thrown the Golem in there, and I think he's having a bit more success on it now. So something to consider, you might have to mix up your team and just go for more mitigation and lose a little bit of speed on the run. But yeah, my Golem, he's on the double speed, HP percent. Obviously, this is a level 1 glyph. I was trying to keep his stats down a bit lower just because he is 5-star, and trust me, I really don't think you need this guy 5-star for the Wrath Dungeon. And then he's on defense. And like I said, there's still 4 yellow glyphs here. Only one of them's at 13, and then I've got a level 1 purple. So very obtainable stats. Once again, I think obviously once you've been farming for a little bit, you might have to go down to level 8 or 9 and farm there for a bit longer to get to this stage. But that's sort of, once you've been farming them for a bit, those are sort of obtainable stats. The next member of the team, so these next 2 members are going to be still at 4-star. Next member we'll look at is the Wind Unicorn. Now, this is just that fantastic unit. I really like the Unicorn. Once again, only at 125 speed, plus 51. Very, very obtainable speed. Once again, I haven't got the greatest glyphs on it. So we've got it on, once again, the speed, defense, and HP. There's a couple good substats in this glyph, and a couple, like, they're not amazing substats. So once again, if you get those yellow glyphs up to 16, you know, obviously it's going to take a bit longer. You have to save the crystals up, but that's the sort of range now. Like that 14, this one's very fine at the 1400, the HP, or almost 1500 HP. 15,000 and the 1,000 defense. Very solid. I've got the accuracy up there a bit too, so it's not too bad. Once again, not max skilled, but I've got the skill up into this 3rd skill, which is very important. So those sort of stats, I'm finding it very reliable. The next one is the Wind Assassin. Now, once again, she's on full purples, but when you look at it, they're not very much upgraded. So we've got the 13 here. This is defense. This is when I talked about early on in my videos. Your poisoner, if you're struggling for stats, you can put that extra defense or HP glyph up the top to try and get those tanky stats you need, because their speed isn't as important. It just means the poisons won't be coming out as much, as frequently. She still does have a plus 52 speed, even though this glyph is only at plus 6. She's got some good substats, and she's got the haste set. So once again, I struggled to get average glyphs because I did have good glyphs. Like that one's level 10 with 12 speed. So, but once again, they are not powered up too far, just to give you that representation. So, and yeah, she's one of those ones. Put a defense glyph up top if you're struggling. With her, I would like a little bit more HP, just to give her that little bit extra buffer in case RNG does go bad. But besides that, she is very decent at those stats. Like I said, they're very where that original 10,000, 1,000 is, but still, these runs have been very reliable. I increased her defense a little bit. Early on, I think I was around 800, and it just wasn't working at all. So, like I said, I've done a fair bit of testing, a fair few runs. With the team as it is now, I think I've had about maybe 2 fails in, I think, 18 or 20 runs. So it's not 100% reliable. Like I said, RNG is still a thing. In one of those recorded videos that I've had playing in the bottom, there is a fail in there just because, you know, the Nymph didn't heal. My buffs wore out as I got armor broken. I didn't have attack break on the boss. I didn't have a shield up. So you can't always win. AI isn't perfect, but you're just trying to... This is that sort of range I'm trying to display of where you can step into it and start trying to get that content done. Obviously not 100% reliable, but at a rate that I see as, you know, acceptable enough for reliability, in that you're going to be getting good enough reward out of enough successes to get those glyphs. Another big thing to consider is your staff. I played around with a few different builds because normally I'm on the Chimera build. I'll show you the build that I use for the Chimera. But the Materia is another great one. I try to build with looking at more using this one, using the increases chance to decrease the enemy's attack instead of the damage. But I found the two damage ones, it just speeds up the run through the waves a lot more. So it's sort of a balance between whether you want to be more reliable or faster. I just wanted a bit quicker run, so that's what I did. So I've gone for the two damage increases, the defense buff, and this one's very handy too, giving your creatures a chance to be immune to all harmful effects except for incapacitation ones. So, that's the armor break, the speed slow, all those sorts of things. But I have also gone for the increased speed that you use your staff instead of one of those damage ones, just because I feel like it gives you that more chance to have the extra RNG to get your defense buff up, get that immunity up, reduce the boss's attack and that sort of thing. And then obviously if you're level 50 you'll have this, if not you won't. I put the shield, just more damage mitigation. Every bit of mitigation you can get helps. So that's probably the most well balanced build I found for Wrath 10 at the moment. Besides that, when I was using Chimera, I was just doing full damage build with the defense break, and it sort of makes your runs a bit faster. But like I said early on, it's not so much about the damage. It's more about having the mitigation in there, just to try and survive to a point that's acceptable for you. And when we look at the Chimera now, especially when I've been using damage dealers, attackers in my teams, I've actually started using the delay here. So your staff has a chance to reduce enemies' turn bars. I just find it much more valuable than a poison, especially in my speed teams that are attackers, because a poison isn't going to do that much damage compared to what my attackers are. And also it gives you that bit of extra mitigation, extra bit of time, even in a poisoner team now. I'd probably be looking at using this just because it gives you that extra chance to get the speed slow, get the attack break on the boss, all those sorts of things. So I think with the change to the boss damage, it has made different staff builds more important. So like I said, Materia is the way that I'd probably recommend going for very early game. And then if you're already a bit later on and you're just thinking about it, I'd test out this build for Chimera, and this build is still really good for farming and all that sort of thing. So that's where I leave my build for now. But that's pretty much all I wanted to show. I will keep doing some more testing, but this team has seemed fairly reliable at these sort of stats. Like I said, it may be that you just have to drop down to 8 or 9 and just farm up some better glyphs, farm up some crystals. I know that's the big thing that a lot of people have trouble with getting into teams for the first time, is the powering up of glyphs, because you run out of crystals really quick. So you might just have to farm that bit longer, but I'm hoping it doesn't put a big roadblock for most people. I'm hoping it's just that maybe get the extra skill ups, 5-star an extra unit. And once again, I know people have better units and that sort of thing, but just keep in mind, your wind units probably don't need the same stats that your water units or earth units need, because the wind get the 30% reduction. And then your fire units might need even better stats now, because that extra damage is doing much more because they get the 30% extra damage taken from the boss. So it's just that sort of thing to consider. And once again, if you are failing, consider the mitigation options. The things that you want, like Waterbird is just fantastic. Obviously, you get the attack break, which is something you need, the speed slow, which is something you need, and the shield, which is very helpful as well. Defense buff is another big one, especially now with that increased damage. Defense buff, increasing the armor, reducing the damage you take is very important, and especially at a high uptime is fantastic. The other mitigations, any attack bar reductions, something like that. Once again, a cleanse, your unicorn. Like I know I keep going back to these units, but they synergize really well for me. Like I said, the unicorn being able to cleanse, give the speed buff. Speed buff is another really big one, even if you're not using the unicorn for the cleanse. Most other cleansers, the only other real cleanser that most people will be using for a 3-star option is the Water Holy Sister, who also has that speed buff. Speed buff is huge. Another way you can get it is through the Earth Pixie, who's another great healer. Just things like that. And then obviously you'll still want your poisoner, AoE poisoner for the to get the damage in. I haven't tested it with an attacker yet. I just still don't think it'll work because the attacker won't have the stats to be able to survive the boss, even though they'll be able to kill the waves quicker. And then obviously the last thing you want is your healer. So for me, it's the Water Nymph. Water Nymph, I still reckon she's a great unit. She has that blind, which can be very clutch at times against the boss. But yeah, there's a lot of good healers out there. But just like I said with Childish, using the Winter Druid, it used to be able to be your defense buffer and healer in one. It may not be the case now, and you might not get the mitigation that you were once getting out of it. So just consider your team comps. Like I said, mitigation is key early on before you start looking at speed. So I hope this video can help some of you get over that hurdle. Leave in the comments below, what sort of ranges you're looking at for stats and that sort of thing. And the final thing I wanted to mention is speed. Like I said, I tried to keep my speeds low to represent what sort of entry-level Wrath 10 teams would be at. But as you get that speed up, it's going to make everything more safe. You'll get your heals around more often, your mitigation up, and it'll make runs quicker. So speed is the next big thing to consider after all this. And yeah, so I hope this helped, and thanks for watching another video, guys, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Cheers.